They say the eyes never lie. But that's not true. A skilled liar knows exactly how to weaponize them. She doesn't need loud excuses or perfect stories, just one carefully timed look can convince you everything is fine, while hiding the truth right in front of you. Psychologists call this micro-expression leakage, those tiny flashes of emotion that escape before the brain has time to hide them. A twitch, a shift, a hollow stare. It lasts less than a second, but it can reveal guilt, fear, or even excitement from deception. Here's the unsettling part: most people never notice. Our brains are trained to trust the face, especially the eyes. But when someone lies, their gaze doesn't match their words. Sometimes it lingers too long. Sometimes it breaks away too fast. And sometimes, it looks right through you, like you're not even there. That's the exact look that betrays her, an unconscious signal the body can't fully hide, no matter how clever the lie. Once you learn how to see it, you'll never unsee it. If you're ready to understand the dark psychology of lying eyes, and the hidden signals most people miss, make sure to hit like and subscribe. The silent language of the eyes: the first thing you notice when someone lies isn't always their words. It's their eyes. Our brains are wired to pick up on tiny changes in gaze, even if we don't consciously understand what we're seeing. That's why, deep down, you've probably felt something was off about someone before you had any proof. That uneasy feeling usually comes from the eyes. When people lie, their brain enters a state of conflict. On one side, they are trying to appear calm, controlled, believable. On the other side, their subconscious mind is screaming with anxiety. That conflict leaks through the eyes because the eyes are connected to the limbic system, the emotional core of the brain. Unlike the mouth, which can shape a story, the eyes betray what words cannot. Think about the last time you asked someone a question and their eyes darted away too quickly. Or maybe they held your gaze just a little too long, almost forcing you to believe them. Both extremes are red flags. Liars often overcompensate, either avoiding your eyes completely or locking on in a way that feels unnatural. It's not the movement itself that matters, it's the mismatch between words and gaze. Studies in behavioral psychology show that the eyes communicate up to 55% of emotional meaning in a conversation. This means if someone's telling you they're fine but their eyes look flat, distant, or oddly intense, their body is speaking louder than their words. The human mind unconsciously picks up on this, which is why people often say, "I don't know why, but I just don't trust her." Another subtle giveaway lies in pupil dilation. When we're anxious, scared, or aroused, our pupils change size involuntarily. A liar may experience microsurges of adrenaline, and that sudden rush can briefly widen or shrink the pupils. Most people never notice it, but your brain feels it, like a silent alarm. The eyes also betray lies through timing. Truthful emotions flow naturally, they rise and fade in sync with speech. But when someone lies, the timing is slightly off. For example, a delayed smile that doesn't reach the eyes. Or an expression that lingers a fraction too long. These delays are the cracks in the mask. And here's the darker twist: skilled liars know this. Some deliberately train themselves to hold steady eye contact, to mimic warmth, to smile on cue. But even then, the eyes often fail them. Because while the face can be rehearsed, the emotional pulse behind the eyes cannot. That's why interrogators, psychologists, and even experienced manipulators focus so heavily on the gaze. The silent language of the eyes is powerful, because once you start seeing it, you realize how many people try to cover their truth with words. And how often the eyes refuse to play along. Micro-expressions, the flash of truth: if the eyes whisper secrets, micro-expressions shout them. These are the tiny, involuntary facial expressions that leak out when someone tries to hide what they are really feeling. The catch? They happen so fast, sometimes in less than a fifth of a second, that most people never consciously notice them. But your subconscious does. That's why you can walk away from a conversation with the unsettling sense that something was off, even if you couldn't point to what. Dr. Paul Ekman, one of the world's leading experts on deception, spent decades studying these flashes of truth. His research showed that micro-expressions are universal. No matter what culture you're from, no matter what language you speak, the face gives away the same fleeting signals: fear, anger, disgust, joy, contempt, surprise, sadness. Even trained liars can't suppress them completely. Picture someone telling you they're happy for your success. The words sound supportive, the smile seems convincing, but for a split second, a flash of contempt or envy flickers across their face. The corners of the mouth twitch, the eyes harden, the muscles tighten. It's gone almost as soon as it appears, but that micro-expression betrays the truth. They are not happy for you. They are threatened. What makes micro-expressions so fascinating is that they come directly from the limbic system, the emotional brain. Unlike practiced smiles or rehearsed lines, these signals are raw. They slip out before the rational brain can cover them up. That's why interrogators, therapists, and even poker champions train themselves to detect them. In high-stakes situations, recognizing a fraction of a second twitch can mean the difference between being deceived or seeing through the mask. But here's where it gets darker. Most people don't consciously know they are picking up micro-expressions, but they feel the impact. That uneasy gut feeling you get when someone seems nice but doesn't sit right with you? Often, it's your subconscious catching those micro-flashes of insincerity. You might not process it logically, but emotionally, you already know they're lying. The challenge is that micro-expressions don't come with labels. Fear might mean someone is hiding a crime, or just nervous about being accused. Contempt could mean deception, or genuine dislike. That's why context matters. Still, spotting these flashes can help you peel back the surface layer of what someone wants you to believe. And here's the chilling truth: once you become aware of micro-expressions, you'll start noticing them everywhere. The friend who insists they're fine while their face briefly flickers with sadness. The co-worker who congratulates you while flashing a millisecond of disgust. The partner who denies jealousy but leaks anger in their eyes for just an instant. Once seen, these moments are impossible to forget. Micro-expressions are the cracks in the armor of deception, the flashes of truth no lie can fully conceal. And if you learn to catch them, you'll begin to realize how often people's faces betray the words they speak. The body's betrayal: when someone lies, they rarely think about their entire body. They focus on controlling their words, sometimes their face, maybe even their tone. But the rest of the body? That's where the truth escapes. Our nervous system reacts faster than conscious thought, and those reactions leak out through posture, gestures, and even the way we breathe. Think about this: when the brain senses danger, like the danger of being caught in a lie, it triggers a stress response. Heart rate climbs. Breathing shifts. Muscles tense. These reactions are nearly impossible to fully suppress. That's why a liar may cross their arms, tap their foot, or shift uncomfortably in their seat. It's not always about nervousness, it's about the body preparing for a threat, even when the threat is only the risk of exposure. One of the most telling betrayals is their voice. Not the words, but the way they are delivered. Under stress, the vocal cords tighten, often making the pitch rise slightly. A liar's sentence might come out a little sharper, a little faster, or oddly rehearsed. And then there are the pauses, the unnatural gaps where the brain scrambles to construct a believable answer. Silence can be as revealing as speech. Then there's the issue of touch. Many liars unconsciously try to comfort themselves while under pressure. They rub their neck, scratch their face, or play with their hands. Psychologists call these pacifying behaviors, tiny attempts to soothe the stress of deception. When you see someone suddenly touching their mouth or covering it mid-sentence, it's often not random. It's the body's primitive way of saying, "Don't believe what just came out of my lips." The feet, strangely enough, may be the most honest part of all. While the upper body tries to sell the lie, the feet point toward the exit, tap with tension, or shift restlessly. Because most people don't consciously control their lower body, it often reveals where their true intentions lie. But here's the darker twist: skilled liars sometimes overcompensate. They freeze their body, hold their posture too stiffly, and try to eliminate all nervous movements. At first glance, it looks calm. On closer inspection, it looks unnatural, like someone trying too hard to stay composed. This rigid stillness can be just as telling as nervous fidgeting. The body, in many ways, is a battlefield between truth and deception. Words can be rehearsed, faces can be trained, but the body often refuses to cooperate. That's why investigators often rely less on what someone says and more on how they say it, their movements, their tone, their breathing, their stillness. And for you, in everyday life, the lesson is unsettling but empowering. When someone swears they are honest, don't just hear their words. Watch their body. Notice the micro-movements, the restless gestures, the subtle shifts. Because the body is a terrible liar, and once you learn its language, you'll see deception unfold in ways most people never notice. The psychology of deception: every lie begins in the mind long before it reaches the lips. To understand deception, you need to step into the psychology of why people lie in the first place, and how their brain struggles under the weight of dishonesty. At its core, lying is a survival strategy. Humans have always lied, to protect themselves, to avoid punishment, to gain advantage, or to manipulate others. But the brain isn't built to lie easily. Speaking the truth is automatic, lying requires extra effort. You must suppress the truth, invent a false version, and then maintain consistency under pressure. This mental juggling act burns cognitive energy, and the strain often shows. Research in neuroscience reveals that lying activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making and control. That's why lies often come with hesitation or awkward pacing. The liar's brain is literally working harder than it would if it simply told the truth. This is also why skilled interrogators add stress and ask rapid, unexpected questions, forcing the liar's brain to collapse under its own workload. Psychologically, deception also feeds on fear. Fear of being caught. Fear of rejection. Fear of losing control. This is why liars often over-explain, adding unnecessary details to make their story sound convincing. The irony? The more details they add, the more cracks appear in their story. Truth flows naturally, lies often drown in their own excess. But here's where things get darker: not all lies are fueled by fear. Some are fueled by pleasure. For certain personalities, like narcissists or psychopaths, lying isn't stressful at all. In fact, it can be exciting. They feel a rush when their false story is believed, as if deception itself is a form of power. These are the people who can lie with a steady heartbeat, a relaxed smile, and eyes that never flinch. Spotting their lies requires a deeper understanding, because they lack the usual signs of stress most people give away. Another layer of deception psychology lies in guilt. When a person feels guilt, their body language often betrays them: downward glances, softer voice, reduced eye contact. But if someone feels no guilt, if they believe their lie is justified, or if they are emotionally detached, you may not see these signs at all. That's why the psychology of deception is so dangerous. Some lies come with visible cracks, while others slide through unnoticed. The chilling truth is that lying is both a weakness and a weapon. For ordinary people, lies leak out because the brain struggles to keep up with its own invention. But for certain personalities, lies are woven into their very identity. They lie as easily as they breathe, not because they have to, but because it gives them control over the reality around them. And that's what makes deception so fascinating and frightening. Every lie is a battle between the truth your brain wants to tell, and the false reality your mind tries to create. The question is, who wins? When the truth finally breaks through, no matter how carefully someone hides it, truth has a way of bleeding through the cracks. Lies may buy time, but they rarely last forever. The longer someone tries to hold a mask in place, the heavier it becomes, and eventually, it slips. Think about the stories you've heard of criminals who confessed after years of deception. Or the spouse who finally admitted betrayal when the weight of guilt became unbearable. The truth doesn't always come out because someone else discovers it. It often escapes because the liar can no longer carry the burden inside. The human mind craves relief, and the pressure of a secret can eat away like acid. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, the mental tension that happens when a person's actions don't match their inner values. For many liars, this inner conflict creates stress, sleepless nights, and even physical symptoms like headaches or anxiety. They may act normal on the surface, but deep down, their body is screaming for release. And that release often comes in slips of the tongue, contradictions, or sudden bursts of emotion that betray what's really happening. But what happens when the liar feels no guilt? That's where the story becomes more unsettling. Certain personalities, psychopaths, habitual manipulators, master deceivers, can maintain lies for years without breaking. Their lack of remorse allows them to weave entire alternate realities, convincing others with chilling precision. The truth in these cases doesn't break through from within, it has to be exposed from the outside. Investigations, confrontations, or undeniable evidence are the only tools that strip the mask away. Still, even the most controlled liars leave tiny trails behind. Inconsistencies in their stories. Micro-expressions flashing for a fraction of a second. A single pause too long, a detail too sharp, or an explanation that sounds a little too rehearsed. For the careful observer, these cracks are the whispers of truth clawing its way out. And when the truth finally does surface, the impact can be devastating. Trust collapses instantly. A single uncovered lie can unravel years of credibility. Relationships break, reputations shatter, and sometimes entire lives are destroyed because deception was built into the foundation. That's why psychologists say lies are not just dangerous, they are fragile. A truth revealed can topple everything. But there's another side to this, the freedom that comes with truth. For the person who has been deceived, uncovering reality is painful but necessary. It allows them to rebuild their life on something solid instead of shadows. And for the liar who finally admits the truth, there is often a strange kind of release. The burden lifts, even if the consequences remain heavy. In the end, deception is never as powerful as it seems. Lies are fragile masks, and truth is relentless, it finds ways to surface, no matter how deep it's buried. The look in someone's eyes when they're lying may give you a glimpse, but when the truth finally breaks through, you see everything.